Hello, everybody. It is Saturday night at 10 p.m. This is Starfleet Tactical. I am Chris Weave, not speaking for his employers as usual. Alec, welcome.
Hey. And I am speaking for my employer, who's me.
So you can always tell when Alec's on the show, because when Alec does the lead-in, he always does both the timer and the Aries Studio thing, because he's a lot better with actually doing the timing on both of those than I am. So
I've actually got it down. I know exactly how to do it now.
Yeah, one of the things I want to talk with you and Stogie about is I think the right answer is just to have an integrated thing so that you click one button and it does it all.
Yeah.
As opposed to having to do the, this thing, rub your stomach and pat your head or whatever it's supposed to be. Because I can never get the timing right on that. But Alec is kind enough to come on the show. It is not entirely the case that when Alec is on the show, it means that I didn't have time to prepare or time or energy to prepare. But you'll make more money than you'll lose betting on that. So, but I actually came up with an idea, and we're gonna do it at some point. I came up with the idea of talking about movies, movies that are sort of guilty pleasure movies, and so we're going to spend at least a little bit of time talking about Wing Commander. We both watched Wing Commander today, which is I just love Wing Commander, not because it's so bad it's good, and not because it's good, but because I can see the potential in that movie, and there's nothing wrong with the big picture idea. It was all in the implementation, but we'll get to that. So Right Sublet says, I spy a Nautilus with my own eye back in the corner. Was that Nautilus always been there?
Oh yeah. Well, okay. Yep, that is that's an EFX Nautilus. Okay. I got it. I was given it for my, I want to say it was my 50th birthday. So that was 2010 by my good dear friend, Jack Morrissey. It is a gorgeous model. It is one of my pride and joys. I've got a few really fantastic models that I keep on display. The Skydiver model by Martin Bauer, which is upstairs for now in Crystal's office. I have a flying sub, one of the really nice build-up flying subs. Yeah, this is a. Let's see if I. I can't see if I can take it. Yeah. This is a.
That's a nice one. I had a really crappy monogram kit as a kid, and
so did I.
And I'm a horrible model builder, and that part, the top part on that kit, the entire top part sort of lifted off.
Right.
One I got was sort of twisted a little bit.
This is such a. It's ironic that the three models big models that I have are the Nautilus, the Flying Sub, and Skydiver. 3 submarines.
You know what you're missing? You're missing the Sea View.
I am.
So
yeah, and if they're excuse me,
I have seen a 3-foot-long Sea View model.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And now I got to plug. Hold on. Now I got to plug this back in and put it back on its stand.
And while he's doing that, I'll show everybody something else that I pulled out for tonight, because when I was looking at Alec's room before he showed up, I noticed the Nautilus back there, and I thought I should show this thing.
Oh yeah, I see. That's awesome. That's awesome. That's it is that's great. Here's another, the other thing that was back there. Oh yeah, wow. Oh, look at that. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if there was ever a broken TV submarine, it's the Sea View. Submarines don't look like that.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. This is the other thing I had back there is this, which is a
lightsaber.
Lightsaber, yeah. It's from the Old Republic game. It's Master Orgus, I think is his name.
Okay.
And I saw this. They had an EFX, which was my good friend Brian Ono, who recently passed away. He just passed away this year. This was on display at their San Diego Comic-Con booth, and I mean, you can see it looks so like, it totally looks steampunk, right?
Yeah.
It's a wood handle, and you can see. You can see it. Look at that. I mean, it's just.
It's
beautiful.
beautiful.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
How does it feel in your hand? The handle looks a little big. Is it?
Well, I mean, no, it feels fine to me.
Yeah.
It's my hands, I think, are pretty average, and but you can see the detail on it is superb. And I saw this and I said, I have to have that. I said, Brian, when's that coming out? I want one. And he said, it's not. He said, this was a gift for the executives or the team, not the executive, the team that made the game, whatever company that was. And he says, and we're not selling them. And I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. Oh, God, I love it. And he goes, hold on a second. He goes into the back of his booth there, comes out with a box and gives me one. He goes, here, it's for you. And he gave me one. And they were going for $2,000. They still do for about $2,000 at the time. They were going on eBay. They were like, and he just gave it to me. And I was verklempt. I was just like, Brian, it was just such a wonderful gesture. And I've always appreciated that. And I was, needless to say, he passed away this year. And I was very saddened by it because he was a real solid guy. So, but anyway, yeah. So that's my my Old Republic lightsaber. So it's one of those things I like my displays, right? I like having, as you can tell, everything I have. I sold most of my Star Trek collection over the past 10 years, and and so I have stuff that was really meaningful to me, and I think that's the way it's good to collect.
As you can say, I like my displays too.
Your coffee mug display.
Yeah, I'm just in an apartment. I only intended to be in this apartment for a year, maybe 2, and I'm currently at 3.5.
Oh wow!
Because of
Has
COVID.
it been that long?
Yeah.
I remember when you moved.
Yeah, because the plan is that I didn't want to move to a new city, start a new job, and buy a house all in the same week. And so it's like, all right, I'll just move to a place and I'll figure out what's available in the area and I'll have time to do it right, et cetera, et cetera. And I just, I should have gone out and done it at the very beginning of COVID. My initial thought was, I'm going to hunker down. The last thing in the world I want to do is to go from potential epidemic site to potential epidemic site looking at houses. I should have just bought right away. The other thing I wish I did is I wish I had contacted some of the used car companies, and I wish I would have figured out they were going to dump their fleets.
Oh,
because the second somebody said that they had dumped their fleets, I went, oh, of course they did. Of course they did. And because I would have bought a new car, and if that happened, I probably wouldn't be sitting in my apartment, not going home for Thanksgiving because my car is in the shop with a terminal transmission problem. So I'm going to have to think about whether I want to put a new transmission in a car or buy a new car or go buy a used car.
Oh, which is a tough market right now.
Yeah, and that's why I'm actually considering the insanity of putting a new transmission in a car that has 297,000 miles.
Oh my God!
And everybody looks at me like I grew a second head. It may be wrong, but it's not dumb. And the reason why is the car is a Nissan. The engine will run forever. The problem with Nissans is never the engine. The problem with Nissans is the transmission. So I'm fixing the problem if I bought a new transmission. Everything else about that car has been great. It's not at the point where I'm spending huge amounts of money fixing stuff. At some point it's going to get to there, but it's not there yet. And I'd really like to own a house, and down payments and all that other stuff, and have an electric charger in my garage and buy an electric car. but I don't own a house, so I don't have my own electric charger. And I think that waiting 2 years on an electric car will make a big difference.
Could be, yeah. I just saw, and I just saw another electric car, Polestar, which I just came across, and I was like, wow, let me check those out. But they're like $80-something thousand, and I'm like, damn, dude, that's a lot. By the way, that box there is a Hot Toys Scout biker and bike and speeder bike.
Wow.
Yeah, that I ordered like last year, and I had it on the payment plan, and it finally came in and was paid off. And I was just like, and I'm not collecting a lot of Hot Toys, as much as I love them, but I was like, ooh, speeder, Scout Trooper and speeder bike, yeah, gotta have that one. So I haven't put it on display yet, but it is that's what that box is. Rob Davidoff said a friend of his just bought a Polestar. Wow. All right, very cool. It's a beautiful car. Beautiful car.
So somebody just said that I should put the new transmission in if it's a Nissan. And
what year is your Nissan?
2008.
So I had the first car I ever bought was a 1990 Nissan Maxima, and it lasted. It died like 2 weeks short of its 10th birthday. 306,000 miles.
Yeah.
And basically, I think it was like the crankshaft went or something like that. It was something at the bottom of the engine went. And and I was like, I was like 300,000 miles. Yeah. And it was towed to a Goodyear dealer here in Atlanta, right? Where not too far from where I worked. And the guy was like, yeah, you could fix it, but it's going to cost you like $5,000 to fix it, $6,000 to fix it. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, okay. So I wound up buying and that was the time when Volvos had just changed their body design from the old square, boring, just boring as shit car to like, that's a Volvo. They and the S60s were really nice, and so I wound up getting one of those. And anyway, they were like, well, what do you want to do with this? The Goodyear was like, well, what do you want to do with this car? I said, well, can I sell it for scrap? They go, yeah, someone will give you $500 for it or so. And he goes, the kid here who works here, he's interested in buying it from you because he'll fix it up. He'll put in the time and fix it up. And I said, oh, who is it? And he said, yeah, it's, a young guy who works here and newly married. He's got a kid, young kid. And I know, I met him. He was like, 25-year-old kid with a wife and a kid, and I was just like,
take it.
Before Chris Pine threw his motorcycle keys to that construction worker, that's what I did. I gave the guy the keys. I said, dude, it's yours. Use it in good health. And
pay it forward.
Yeah. And so hopefully he fixed it up, hopefully, and got some good mileage because that car treated me well. So your Nissan, yeah.
Yeah.
How much are they going to charge you for the new transmission?
They said it'd be around $5,000, which is what I paid for. So this is actually the second transmission that's gone. The first one went at 162,000 miles.
Oh, wow.
And so the second one hasn't gone yet, but it's beginning to slip. And so like I decided I didn't want to do a 1,300 mile round trip with a transmission that's beginning to go. And so from that standpoint, it's just like, okay, it's probably getting to that point where I need to, and I'd rather make the decision. So I'd rather not have to make this decision on a roadside somewhere. I did that the last time. I lost my transmission on Sandstone Mountain in West Virginia. I limped to Bagley, West Virginia at like 35 miles an hour. Got there. And they had a rental car, and I ended up renting a car, finishing my drive to Iowa, coming back a week later, picking up the car with the new transmission.
Oh my gosh!
And so I'd much rather have it be more of a planned evolution this time. And the thing is, I said I need to know a couple of pieces of information. I need to know, can you fix the transmission as is? And if you can't fix the transmission as is there anything else major with this car to be worried about? So they're going to troubleshoot the transmission. They're going to do a complete, inspection of the rest of the diagnostic on the rest of the car to see if there's anything else going on. And so they'll either come to me and say, yes, throw $800 at us and we can fix it. Or they'll say no, or they'll tell me that, no, there's something else really major about to go wrong with this car. And those are easy decisions. I only have a hard decision if they come up with something in the middle that involves a new transmission.
Yeah.
So I'm an analyst
of data. Yeah, we have a Mazda 6 and 180,000 miles, 178,000 miles, and the engine just went. We were having like nasty problems with it, and took it to my guy, got it towed. AAA. Everyone should be a member of AAA.
Yep.
Best $75 you spend all year. And got it towed. And he's like, yep, you need a new engine. I'm like, a new engine at 178,000 miles? He goes, yeah. I said, holy crap, that's crazy. I said, and he goes, yeah, he says, Mazda's usually last a lot longer than. So $6,000 later, $6,800 later, we have a new engine. So this car will get well into the 300,000, and it's a great car. I love it. It's beautiful. It's a little dinged up here and there, but man, I love that car.
Mine has a lot of sun damage because the entire time I've had it, it's been outdoors, and it was right after they changed to the new eco-friendly paint. And so it chips easy and it's got a lot of sun damage. So the outside of the car looks like crap. One's great. The outside of the car looks like crap. The inside, the dashboard is sort of like had a lot of sun damage on it too. So there's parts of the dashboard that are very, very sticky on the top up by the vents. But I don't care. I don't put anything up there. And so I'm thinking, okay, maybe this makes sense. I did ask him, hey, if I do the insane thing and I change the transmission, how much would it cost to get a new paint job? And my service manager says, hold on just a second. Let me go ask him real quick, and comes back and says, I got bad news for you. It's like $10K.
Oh God.
Yeah. Now, note, I haven't checked into Earl Scheib or somebody like that.
Yeah,
so there's a possibility that there's somebody else who can do it a lot cheaper. Yeah. But this is through the dealer.
That sounds really, really high. Well, let's get talking about movies, so everyone's not listening to our car problems.
That's true. Let me finish this one thought though, because the one that I concluded, it's like, if you told me $1,000, that's easy. If you told me 2 or 3, that's kind of hard. But when you tell me $10,000, that's easy.
Right.
The answer is no.
Yeah, the answer is right. Exactly.
So let's talk about Wing Commander. So now, did you ever play the game? I never played
played the game.
So I am totally and completely unburdened by any knowledge of the game, with the exception that I know that Malcolm McDowell played Admiral Tolwyn, I believe. I think he played Admiral Tolwyn in the movie or the video games, and that's the only thing I know about him. But I've heard good things, and I haven't read any of the books either.
No, and my friend read the books. A good friend Curtis read the books, and he loved them. He loved the books.
Pat told me he loved the books too, but I just haven't read them. I had high hopes for the movie. I thought the sets looked pretty good. The sets looked fairly. I mean, the sets. There were a couple of things that a couple of the doors were comically thick. They were like battleship external door armor thick, way more than you would need for an internal door. Other than that, everything else, they spent some time on ships. They spent some time on ships, and I liked the bridge sets. I thought
the bridge was pretty good. I thought the bridge was. I thought the headsets was like, wow, you just took like off the shelf headsets for everyone. It's 600 years in the future, and it looks like you guys have
big clunky headsets.
Comically clunky headsets. But other than that, I mean, it was with a keen eye, you look and say, wow, they did this movie on a budget.
Yes.
They were on a budget because, they clearly, either shot on some ships, Navy ships, or were basically, salvaging a Navy ship for the sets. you know, the bridge set, the bridge sets, you know, were pretty good. They were pretty interesting. But I never saw anything where I could, wow, they spent a lot of money on that. You know, the cockpit's pretty, you know, everything was pretty, even the landing bay. I mean, you really never, you know, and I'm guessing it was 1990. The film was made in 1999. So, you know, early CGI. You know, I am now, interestingly, where they spent their money was the cast.
Yeah.
Because you had David Warner, who is as fine an actor as there is. I think it was, maybe it was Patrick Stewart. I was reading about when they were shooting Chain of Command, and I want to say it was Patrick Stewart who said that David Warner's, I want to say it's Henry V or Henry III, whatever the Shakespeare play is, is legendary. Like David Warner's performance of that Shakespeare character was legendary. He was so famous. So everyone, and Warner just passed. I think he passed this year.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, and so a fantastic actor. And then you had Jürgen Prochnow, who is a wonderful actor, of course, who was in Dust Bowl.
I don't think they gave him a very good role.
No, I kind of agree with you there. Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. So, and let me just put it. Let's pull it back up here.
And you know, it's always interesting when you look at these guys and trying to figure out how much of it is the actor and how much of it is the director and how much of it is the script. Because I think Matthew Lillard they had the buttons set, they had the switches set wrong on him. And they were trying to do crazy fighter pilot guy. And I don't think that helped the movie at all.
No, I don't think. I agree with you there. I agree. I like him as an actor. I liked him ever since Hackers. You know, I think he's very competent, but I don't think that character helped I'm with you. I don't think that helped the.
Yeah, and the things that, so I'm going to talk about the things that I liked at some point, but the things that I didn't like about it, the things that I thought were sort of problematic, were things like one of the things to keep in mind is that everything that happened in that movie took place over the course of about 30 hours.
Right.
And by the time they got to the Tiger Claw, it was about, if I remember correctly, wasn't it 25 hours once they got to the Tiger Claw?
Yeah.
And so think about all that happened. And it's not so much that they had a busy day. It's the emotional relationships that, okay, yeah, they all got thrown into this sort of meat grinder together. But there's characters that are acting like when Rosie dies. Oh, by the way, everybody, it's a 23-year-old movie. There's going to be spoilers all over the place, and I'm not going to apologize for it. When Rosie dies, it's like, you know, you had thought that they had been married for 10 years when they had literally known each other for a day.
Right. Exactly.
And so there was an awful lot of that. There was an awful lot of people arguing with each other in what was a command relationship that probably shouldn't have happened. And I'm not saying there's always room for professional disagreement. And I think you could have generated a lot of drama with professional disagreements as opposed to sort of cheap theatrics, which is the way that they generated drama in that show. And the gold standard, I think, in this, the one I always refer to, is Apollo 13, right? One tiny explosion, no bad guys, everybody lives. You know the ending in advance, and it's still a riveting movie. Every time I watch that movie, I'm worried about the heat shield.
Yeah,
Every
right.
single time. Because it's just a fantastic movie.
Right.
And there's some conflict. And if you listen to the Jim Lovell track, he says, yeah, that fight in the lunar module, that argument never happened. Right? They were totally, completely focused. They were a team. NASA doesn't hire people like that. They were totally, well, except for Alan Shepard. They were totally and completely focused, and that fight didn't happen. But you sort of look at that and you go, that wasn't a professionally inconsistent fight, right? That is that's good. That's very good. When BSG came out, critics accused the Cylons of getting their fighters at a Kilrathi garage sale. That's good. There's plenty of room to have professional disagreements, especially under times of high stress. And, people will occasionally say something and then, oh, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. But that's entirely different from, Lillard and what's his name, Prince are in the ready room for what, 5 minutes before they get in a fist fight or
Right.
about to get in it's like, no, that doesn't make sense. They certainly, it doesn't make sense that they consistently believe that there's consistently gravity in space. Like, you go vertical, they call it a climb, it's like, oh yeah, I go vertical and they'll outperform you in a climb. It's like, no. You can't really block the runway. They could have just coasted over her ship and landed, so
Right.
There's all sorts of issues like that. So from that standpoint, it's kind of a shit show.
Yeah. And it's interesting. In a way, I found that, yes, the interpersonal drama is over dramatic, and it's a little, the whole thing's a little formulaic. It's like, yeah. Oh wow, so here's you kind of get what's going on, and you kind of know where things are going. I think the hide and seek part is good. I guess I kind of feel like I think for this movie I felt like, wow, they really overshot the cast. Overshot meaning like they really went way over with the cast. You had David Warner.
Yeah.
You had, I'm going to probably butcher his name, but Shaky Karyo, who you've been in everything. He's fantastic. He's fantastic. He's always fantastic in everything. I loved him in The Core, which is, you talk about guilty pleasure movies. I loved him in The Core. I love him in everything. He's just really compelling. And then we talked about Jurgen Prochnow, and then the captain, David Suchet, you've seen in a bunch of stuff. Another fantastic actor. So they have like the 4 like adults in the room are all like A-level actors, right? They're really, they get, and then you get, Freddie Prinze Jr. and Matthew Lillard, you're like, okay, and the writing just, I think the movie was more interesting than the writing led us to believe.
Yeah, and there's other so the entire idea that the future of Earth is on the line, and what's his name is going to go with, here I've got Tolwyn's ring, as opposed to just skipping right to, yeah, here's my access code, and you'll see that I'm a Commodore, and I actually outrank you, and so shut the up.
Right, yeah. Like when he reveals that to her, when he reveals that later on,
it's like, what was that? What was that shit with the
right?
Yeah.
You're like, wait a second. Why are you telling us now? Shouldn't you have said that when you were on the bridge with the captain? It's like, why is it a secret? Just because you're Navy intelligence doesn't mean you're it.
Well, okay. So the thing is, yeah, I can understand. He probably, he's burning his identity. There's potentially the idea that he's not going to be able to do whatever it is that he was doing again. And by the way, he's a pilgrim too. Doesn't he have the Force?
And that
but
that whole thing got me too. I was
yeah,
like,
so that was a little problematic. But the thing is, I can understand why he would be reticent to do it. But you got to the point where it's like the future of the human race is at stake, and I need to convince these people now to listen to me and trust me, and I don't have time to waste. Why don't we skip to the end point? Right? Let's just go right to the point where I show you the secret orders.
yes, exactly.
Because I'm pretty sure that this is one of those exceptions to the rule.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, there are times where you say, this is what I need to do, you know, because the stakes are too big, and he should have just gone there. So
and I also didn't quite the whole Pilgrim Force thing.
Yeah.
You know, I just didn't buy that, and again, that felt forced as well. Like, oh, we're gonna create this prejudice against these pilgrims, and Freddie Prinze Jr. has to overcome the prejudice. But like, this movie is on a timer. You're getting from A to B pretty damn fast. You don't have time to set that whole thing up for a big payoff in the end, which we don't get. What Freddie Prinze does it, Jr. does it, you know, like. What?
Well, it all sets
Jurgen Proch now uses the Force, like, you know, it's a third of the way through the movie, and he's like, trust me, I'm going to guide us through this quasar, pulsar, whatever the fuck it was.
Yeah. Whatever his name is, the Turkish guy. Yeah, the Turkish actor. Yeah, he does it to get him through there, but you know, it's all about setting him up to make that jump at the end, right? That he's going to have to program it because only he has that power.
And I
remember
work for me.
They could have gotten about 75% of what they were aiming for more reliably if they just had like him being the son of the leader of the rebellion, right? Rather than just some random pilgrim, have him be the son of the leader of the rebellion, or something like that. And it's so it's like people are like questioning his integrity. You know, set up a situation that's a lot closer to being like Data, right? Like, does this guy even belong here? And the answer is, look, I went to the academy. I've signed. I swore the same oath you guys did. Why are you giving me all this shit?
Right.
Right. And so they could have gotten there without the secret identity bullshit.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So it just felt like there were a lot of movie tropes that they were throwing, or movie themes, you know, that they were throwing together in a movie that ultimately didn't need it. We didn't need all that stuff with the
pilot. We didn't.
We didn't need the whole Pilgrim thing. There was a lot, you know, this could have been a very compelling movie, and you could have achieved everything you wanted without all that nonsense.
Yeah, because let's talk about the good part about this, because this is the part that causes me to watch this movie at least once a year, right? The good part about it that causes me to watch it. The Kilrathi conduct a secret attack. They capture the computer thing that gives them the path to Earth. The battle group, it's like, I need somebody to get me information and to delay these guys for a couple of hours to get the blocking force in. Those guys are it, right? They're the only guys who can do it. I'm going to send you on this mission. You need to do two things. You need to get me the information. You need to slow them down. And if every last one of you dies while doing it, that's still a win. Right? Because this is a suicide mission, potentially. And so they send them off to do it. And not only do they accomplish their mission, but they take advantage of an opportunity that turns the tables on it. Right. And so that part's great. There's a little bit of extra stuff in there with like the Kilrathi ship, and you know, all roads apparently lead to Beacon 147. And they do the bit with the Kilrathi ship. And then there's one of the scenes that just most frustrates me in the entire movie. Remember the scene where David Warner and the captain are on the bridge, and they're watching the individual ships come out one at a time and be destroyed. And then Richard like walks up to him and says, "Sir, the individual ships are coming out one at a time and are being destroyed."
Right. Yeah, exactly. I was like, dude, first of all,
I got a window.
Show us that, and we all figured it out.
So
yeah, it's called exposition, and this is, they, and the funny thing is, that you always, the good screenwriting coaches always tell you, show, don't tell.
Yeah,
Great, you showed us, and then you're telling us. It's like, we're not idiots. We just saw it happen. You don't need to now tell us what we just saw.
Well, and he could have come in and said, the count currently stands at 75 ships destroyed. We think that they've got like another 20 or so.
Yeah.
Right. He could have come in and given the captain or the admiral some useful information, or he could have come in and said, Seventh Fleet just arrived in system. We've got backup, et cetera, et cetera. He should have come in and given him a status report. He didn't have to tell him about the thing that he's watching right in front of him. And, he's on a bridge with a bunch of people that have scanners and stuff like this. Trust me, the admiral is being updated.
Yeah.
Right. The admiral is being updated. In the U.S. Navy ship, the admiral has his own command center separate from combat. So you've got the combat direction center, which is where the ship's company fights the carrier, and then you've got the sea combat commander, and then you've got a room off to one side where they do the undersea warfare stuff. So you've got undersea, surface, and self-defense all in one room. And then in the tactical flag command center, you've got the admiral and his staff doing their thing, listening to all the circuits, et cetera. It's actually kind of funny. They're talking to each other in the radio when they're literally like maybe 30 feet apart, 40 feet apart. I've watched two people on a Navy ship talk to each other in the radio when they're literally sitting close enough that at one point when they wanted to have a private conversation, the one woman reached over and tapped the other one on the shoulder. But the reason why they're talking on the radio is because other people need to listen to the conversation.
Right. Yeah. Well, so overall, without kind of wrap up Wing Commander, so we can talk about some other movies. It's fun. It's an interesting movie because there's so many things. It's weak. As a movie, its technique is poor.
Yes,
it's weak cinematographically. It's a weak movie. However, it's a really fun movie.
Yeah.
If you're into that stuff, it's a really fun movie. You can forgive it. And they're giving us all these great actors, and you're like, okay, I'll watch those guys. It's like, I feel bad because I'm like, oh my God, poor David Warner. I mean, I hope he got a good paycheck because they did not give him much to work with.
And everything you could fix all that with the script. The problem was the script.
And the problem was absolutely the script.
Let me write the script. You can even keep all the same scenes that you shot. I'd throw some of them away and I'd rearrange some of the other ones. And take out the sound effect of the sonar. The sonar was kind of stupid.
But they were totally they're totally channeling,
Oh, but
it's like Jürgen Prochnow was like, wasn't I in this movie already?
Yeah, and the other thing is, Jürgen Prochnow is sort of like the crude racist is just like there's no subtlety there, right?
Right, none whatsoever.
I mean, it would have been different if there had been a little character development with him, where like you find out that his parents also died in the war, but they were killed by pilgrims. That would have okay.
Oh yeah.
There could have been something there, but as it was just ham-fisted. There was something else I was going to say about the sonar stuff. So there's right ways and there's wrong ways to do stuff like that. You can be evocative of submarine combat without trying to replicate it frame by frame.
Yeah.
And a great example of that is the novel Passage at Arms by Glenn Cook, which is Das Boot in space. It really
Okay.
is fundamentally DOS boat in space. But the thing is that it's interesting in and of itself. They set up very similar situations. It sort of feels the same, but it's not because they have space sonar, right? It's not because of, this. He does it very well, and he's got enough of his own touches to it. Like one of the things that the ships will be sent out to do is the climbers, instead of submerging, they climb. The climbers in that story are powered by antimatter, because they basically phase kind of into another dimension, and they leave a singularity point in this one, which gets smaller and smaller as they climb away. And the thing is that this process, this field that they generate to do this, inhibits fusion reactors, so that you can't power it with fusion. So if you can't use fusion, what do you use? Use antimatter, which is really seriously dangerous stuff, and which means that the ships are like they're a bomb waiting to go off. And so every now and then they'll do things, and usually that's what happens when there's an accident or when they're destroyed, big boom. And so occasionally they'd send out ships and they'd say, go to this location and look at this direction at this time. And somebody has done a time distance calculation. They think they know what happened to a ship that didn't come back. And so now they're like a half light. The ship didn't come back 6 months ago. Go to this place a half a light year away and sit there and look and tell us if you see a bright flash. And if you do, we know that we can take them off the missing in action list and put them in the killed in action list. And it's a fantastic book. It's a book I read every couple of years. So
yeah, and I never even saw those movies, and I agree.
I didn't either. I'm still just amazed that they didn't pick Janine Garofalo to play Velma.
Yeah, and by the way, just again, you got to watch Hackers. Hackers is such a great movie.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
Oh my God! I mean, we're talking Angelina Jolie's feature film debut, along with Johnny Lee Miller, who, if you're watching The Crown, Johnny Lee Miller was just playing Prime Minister Major in The Crown, and he did a brilliant job of it. And Johnny Lee Miller, who also was, he's been in so many things. He's played Sherlock Holmes recently in a TV series. What's the name of that TV series? The one with Lucy Liu.
Oh yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
Where he plays Sherlock Holmes, a modern day Sherlock Holmes, and he's freaking brilliant.
As opposed to the one with Benedict Cumberbatch, where he plays a modern day Sherlock Holmes.
Well, yeah, exactly. In England, and the Johnny Lee Miller one is fascinating because he is transported to New York, and it's not so steeped in Holmesian legend.
Yeah.
Whereas Cumberbatch's is really a lot closer. But anyway, they're both brilliant. And anyway, Johnny Lee Miller, by the way, and here's the great trivia: Johnny Lee Miller is the grandson of Bernard Lee, the original M in the original James Bond movies.
Ah.
Yeah. I heard that. I was like, wow. And of course, he was Angelina Jolie's first. They hooked up and got married off of Hackers when they were both. I mean, they were both teenagers at the time, or close to it. And Johnny Lee and Angelina are still best of friends. They say they're still. Even though they got divorced, they're still great friends. So which is good to hear.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
It's always
okay. Next movie.
How about Millennium?
Oh yes, you and I have talked about that. I love that movie.
I do too, and it also is not a good movie.
No, it's not.
And so I'll note
another movie done on a budget.
Yeah, and I'm explicitly these are not movies that fit in the category of so bad it's good.
Right.
They are not good movies. The fact that they are not good movies is not something in their favor. It's not
They're
what makes them
entertaining.
attractive. They're entertaining movies, and they've got something in both of these cases. They're movies that I find myself drawn to.
Oh, your brother came through.
Yes, he did.
Elementary, right?
Elementary.
Yes, thank you very much, Dylan. We appreciate it.
Yeah. So.
Oh yes, and that is true. Yes, they did. Yeah, good trivia there. So good trivia. But a Millennium is great because Cheryl Ladd, right off her prime in Charlie's Inn, and Chris Christopherson, who I am always loved as an actor.
Yeah,
made his bones as a singer, but I always found Chris Christopherson a compelling actor.
I put him in the same category as Keanu Reeves. And by that I mean I once heard a description of Keanu Reeves that perfectly describes him, and that is surprisingly effective when used according to the directions.
Okay.
Right? If you ever saw Dangerous Liaisons, not something he should have at the top of his resume. Right?
Okay.
Did not do a particularly good job of playing a young French aristocrat. Not the right movie for him. Right. But
fair enough.
John Wick and The Matrix, etc. When he's in the right vehicle, he's the right guy. Now, then you've got people like Daniel Day-Lewis, right? Like if you needed him to play a lampshade, he could play a lampshade, and he'd spend 6 months living in a furniture store before he did it, in order to learn about. I mean, when he did Last of the Mohicans, he spent like several months living in the woods.
Oh my God.
And like hunting for food and stuff. I mean, like
he's insane.
Yeah, he is the ultimate in method acting.
Yes, he is.
So, but he's a chameleon. He can be anything. That is not the case, I think, with either Keanu Reeves or Chris Christopherson. But when you need that guy, they're perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, and you feel like there's not a lot of range, right? I mean, Neo and John Wick are pretty close.
Yeah. They end up in the same place. They start in very different places, but they end up in the same place.
And that's not to say that, not to say that Keanu Reeves is a bad actor at all.
No, he's not. He's a fantastic actor. Yeah. And maybe he's developed a range that he didn't have before, right? When he did Dangerous Liaisons, it was very early in his career.
Now, yeah, and I'm just looking. Oh, yeah, Chris Christopherson was, of course, in Blade, and he was wonderful. He was wonderful in Blade.
Yeah. So I've always wondered, if Wesley Snipes did a movie about a guy who got caught evading his taxes, could he write off his legal fees as research?
Could he write off his legal fees as research?
Yeah. Because of course he got caught and sent to prison for evading his taxes. So if he did a movie about that, could he?
Oh, interesting. That's funny. That's funny.
Yeah, he listened to some idiot who basically said, "You don't actually have to pay taxes if you just know what magic words to use." He listened to the tax equivalent of a sovereign citizen guy, and
oh my God,
and filed taxes, that tax returns that were just garbage.
Got it. So, wait, Chris Christopherson was in Watchmen?
Was he?
That's what it says here.
I don't remember that. But I've only seen Watchmen all the way through once, which is a failing. I need to correct that.
And that's a movie that I could argue is a very well-made movie that's not entertaining. But visually, it's so Zack Snyder. It's Zack Snyder is like, he's just such a brilliant such a brilliant artist.
Yeah.
The guy knows how to shoot a movie like nobody's business, but not necessarily he shouldn't be writing the movie.
So did he ever do a director's cut of Watchmen?
No, because I really think they gave him free reign to do what he wanted on Watchmen, which he did. And it is visually, Watchmen is a spectacular movie.
Yeah.
The title sequence is one of the great title sequences in all of movies, especially because it tells the story of how they got it. It's brilliant. Yeah, that movie is just I love Zack Snyder way more than Crystal does, and I just finished watching the Snyder cut of the Justice League Snyder cut, and it's brilliant. I'm sorry, people bet it's a shame. You know what it's like? The Snyder cut is like the Mueller report. The problem with the Mueller report was that asshole Bill Barr told us what was in the Mueller report, which was a lie.
Yes.
He lied about it.
Yeah.
He said, "Oh no, Trump did nothing wrong. There was no. The Mueller report specifically says here are the 8 places where he obstructed justice." And the problem was Robert Mueller was just too nice and was trusting that they would take action on it. Of course. So when you actually read the Mueller report, you'd already gotten the summary from Bill Barr and we're like, wait a second, this isn't what, and that's the way the Snyder cut is. You watch the Snyder cut and you go, you're like, oh fuck, I wish I didn't see the original Justice League, because now I'm totally, now I've got to separate the two and really focus on. So I saw the Snyder cut for the second time, and yeah, man,
I still haven't seen the Snyder cut.
Oh fuck, for 4 hours, it's worth it. It is just you never come to a point in that movie where you go, yeah, can you just cut this out here and save us 30 minutes? No, you never go there.
Which is impressive, because usually the Lord of the Rings movies are an exception to this, but I remember like watching the extended version of Aliens, and they made the right cuts. They did.
Yeah, they did.
Because the theater version is better than the extended.
Yeah, because the extended version is like the geek version.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
There's things that are in the book that are in the extended that aren't in the regular one, like the sentry guns, right? And the sentry guns do explain, like, why is this a fair fight? Why did it get to the point where like they're kind of holding their own? Why aren't they just overwhelmed? When we know that there's the colony had 300 and some people there, so one could expect that there are 300 and some aliens out there, and so this explains why a bunch of them got taken out by the sentry gun, and now it's actually kind of closer to being even. But yeah, they as a general rule, those cuts were pretty good. I want to go back to Millennium because I want.
Yeah.
It's worth pointing out that I don't know if have you ever read the novel?
Yeah, I read the novel first.
I didn't.
Which is that's not Millennium by Ben Bova.
It's Millennium by John Varley.
Right, John Varley, right. Another fantastic science fiction writer.
Oh, Varley is fantastic. And the thing is, I bounced off of Varley when I was young, in large part because the marketing scheme for all the Varley stuff was pages of quotes from people telling me how fantastic he is. And in all honesty, as a general rule, it's a little bit less that way now than it was before. But as a general rule, that I don't care. I just don't, because there are a lot of fantastic writers out there that write books that I'm not interested in. And so I'd much rather be able to tell something about the story. And the thing is, the back of Millennium was literally one sentence about what the book was about. Huh. It was like one sentence, and it's like, no. And I was in, where was I? I was in Minneapolis, if I remember correctly, for a wedding. And I had left the wedding reception and had gone back. I think I had gone back to it was either before the wedding or after the wedding. I was in my hotel room and was just flipping through channels, and I stumbled across the movie, and I knew, Chris Christopherson and Cheryl Ladd were in it, but I had never seen the movie. And I came in partway through and was enraptured by it, and got home, bought the movie, bought the book, and the book, the movie was bad but entertaining and compelling. The novel is an order of magnitude better.
Oh yeah. Now I got to go back and read that book again.
Yeah, I do too.
Now because it was a fast read too.
Yeah. It's not a very long book.
It's not a long book, and it's like you'll finish it in 2 days if you're slow.
Yeah. And it's just a fantastic book, and there's so much stuff in there. I especially like, okay, spoilers for a 40-year-old book. I mean, that book came out in the 70s, if I remember correctly. So,
oh, I think so.
Yeah. It had to have, because I remember seeing it at the West Des Moines Public Library, and I remember when I was going there. So, at one point in the book, they talk about the
1983.
Oh, that surprises me. That
the film came out in 89.
Okay. There was a comment made.
And it's based on Varley's short story Air Raid, published in 1977. There you go. That's interesting.
Yeah, that must be what I'm thinking of. Air Raid was the part about stealing people out of the airplane. It was a short story about stealing people out of the airplane, and then they added the rest of it later. And there's a point in there where they talk about how they've had, they're talking about how society had gotten to the point that it had gotten to, and they're like, what, 20,000 years in the future, something like that. And they had 17 nuclear wars. And the Chris Christopherson character says, "How did you people let this get so bad?" And they just ripped him a new one. Cheryl Ladd's character just ripped him a new one and said, "Us, your generation are the people that started this, asshole. You guys had the first one. Like, you let the genie in." And we've been dealing with it ever since. So don't give me that shit. It's great.
Yeah.
So I knew that if we got on the subject of movies that were guilty pleasures, etc., that eventually Starship Troopers would come up. I do not find the Starship Troopers movie a guilty pleasure.
No, I
just think it's a bad movie.
Well, and I understand the idea. I understand what's his name, the director, was going for. Okay, I get it.
I'm against fascism too.
Yeah. We all are. The problem for me, was the book was so great. The book was such a different science fiction book, because it was really like science fiction meets political science, right?
Yeah.
It was really had some really great themes in it. So the movie is a letdown because, such a great book, and you decided to do that with it.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, and then Verhoeven in the end says, "Oh, this is Heinlein's philosophy." I didn't bother to actually finish reading the book, but this is his philosophy. This is what's, and it's like, no, Heinlein would be appalled by that. So I actually I do a Starship Troopers talk at science fiction conventions, and I actually did it as on Starfleet Tactical about 40 episodes ago.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So yeah, it's there.
It is not a it's not a guilty pleasure for me. Now, a guilty pleasure for me, as I often talk about, is Armageddon. Is my favorite guilty pleasure movie.
Yeah, I need to go and watch. It's been so long since I've seen the whole thing. I need to go watch it. And I remember, I think, isn't Ben Affleck in that movie? Or is it Matt Damon? Alec, did we lose you? Okay, Alec is frozen, so I think we've lost Alec. At least he Yeah, he appears to be.
I'm back.
Okay, that's weird. It looks like I was frozen too, but it looks like we're both back. Matt Damon or Ben Affleck was in that movie, right?
Ben Affleck.
Okay, so Ben Affleck apparently said something to Michael Bay, like, wouldn't it be easier to take astronauts and teach them how to be miners than to take miners and teach them how to be astronauts? And Michael Bay didn't say it this way, but to quote my friend Mike Markowitz, "Shut up," he explained. I mean, his response, I believe, had a 4-letter word, and he told.
Well, what doesn't surprise me, that knowing what I've heard about Michael Bay, and actually, but I see the thing is, he explains it in the movie. Bruce Willis's character explains it. And basically, the answer to Ben Affleck's question is no. It wouldn't be easier because mining is not a skill. Mining is an art. That's what Bruce Willis says in the movie. He says, Bruce Willis says, look, I'm 3rd generation, wildcatter, and I still don't have it right, and I'm the best in the business, right? And so his whole point is it's an art, not a science. If it was a science, yeah, I could teach you, I could give you and I love that, so that, which makes a lot of sense. And when you go, oh, okay. Yeah, so use the astronauts to get you up there, and then all you got to do for the miners is put them in spacesuits and teach them not how to die in space,
and have a couple of real astronauts along to sort of shepherd them all through.
Yeah, exactly. So
now I can believe that. I mean, that's a good enough explanation that I'm willing to press the I believe button. And this sort of goes back to, we've had this conversation before, where I when we've talked about Field of Dreams versus The Matrix. The Matrix, I always find there's not a damn thing in Field of Dreams that makes sense. It just doesn't. But, it's not a movie that tries to engage you intellectually. It's a movie that engages you emotionally.
Exactly.
And as a result of that, I, like you, if I'm flipping through channels, Field of Dreams is on, I know what I'm doing for the next hour and a half.
That's right. You cannot not watch it.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of my all-time favorite movies, and I am not a baseball guy at all.
Yeah.
The Matrix, on the other hand, tries to be an intellectual movie. It tries to be a thinking movie, and most of the thoughts it has to offer you are dumb.
Yes.
And so I've always found The Matrix to be disappointing. Aside from the fact that it's like, yeah, I got it. You wanted to make Neuromancer. You should have just made Neuromancer.
Yeah. So, yeah. No, I hear you. Yeah, I have there is and I'm trying to think of what the name of there's a movie website out, which now I forget what the name of the site is, and it allows you to make your lists and make your list of your favorite movies or whatever, and title the list. So I have multiple. I have like my top 10 movies. I have my second 10 movies. And then I have my guilty pleasure movies, and also movies that if it's on, you have to watch it, like Shawshank Redemption is the same way.
Yeah,
Shawshank Redemption. Wherever you come in, you feel like, okay, Morgan, I'm in. Tell me a story, right? And you have to follow it through. But that's the way Field of Dreams is. Field of Dreams, is compelling like that. But yes, it's not a guilty pleasure. Field of Dreams is a brilliant movie.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
Yeah, it's so in so many ways, and it is. I think you hit it on the head. It's an emotional. It speaks to you emotionally, not intellectually.
Yeah, if you build it, he will come.
Yeah, exactly. As a matter of fact, I've got an autographed photo of that guy.
Ray Liotta?
No, not Ray. Here, matter of fact, it's right. Where is it? Oh, got two autographed photos that I've got to get framed. One of which, of course, is
Ah, okay.
That
Which robot is that?
so that's Yui, I think.
Okay.
Yui, yeah, because Dewey's the blue one and Louis is the dead one.
Okay.
So there's that, and then I've got.
Oh yeah. Yep. The guy who played the father.
Yeah, I played John Kinsella. Yeah. So these are two. I just need to go. Matter of fact, I was over at Hobby Lobby today, seeing if they had their 50% off sale on their frames, because I got these two. I've got a bunch of comic book art. All has to be framed. But anyway, yeah. So there you are.
So somebody asked the question: is the site that you were talking about Letterboxd?
Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you. Yes, it's Letterboxd. It's spelled funny too, isn't it?
Yeah. No E. Oh well.
What is it?
2 E's instead of 3. Boxed is BOXD. According to Ray Wood. Thank you, Ray.
Ray, you are the man who came through. Is that? Yep. There it is. Sign
Right.
in.
Someone says that Roadhouse and Under Siege are on his list of guilty pleasure movies.
Roadhouse. Yes. Roadhouse. That's so funny. Matter of fact, I was just watching season 4 of Yellowstone last night, and the cowboy that's running all the horses for the ranch, all the high-end horses. He's lecturing Jimmy, the kid who's just a lost cause, and he's taking him to Texas to. He's going to drop him off at a ranch so he can learn to be a cowboy. But anyway, they're in the truck together, and he says, "The best movie ever made, Roadhouse." He says, "I've always wanted to be Sam Elliott when I grow up." But yeah. Okay, so
Sam Elliott was great. Is great.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Is this my? I think I'll pull out my list for you. Okay, so here are my 10. I have 6 guilty pleasure movies on my 10 guilty pleasure list. So Armageddon.
Oh.
Here we go. You get so Armageddon, 16 Candles, Red Dawn. Has to be there. The Great Wall, the recent movie with Matt Damon. I absolutely love that movie, beyond all reason. Vertical Limit, the Chris O'Donnell, Scott Glenn movie from about 15 years ago, mountain climbing movie.
Yeah.
Great movie with a phenomenal score. I love that movie. And then Journey to the Far Side of the Sun is on this list.
That's a deep cut.
Yeah,
that's a deep
one. Yeah.
The only Jerry Anderson feature film.
Yeah, exactly. So so there you go. And then on my must watch, I have 4 films on my must watch. We mentioned Shawshank Redemption. We mentioned Field of Dreams. Galaxy Quest is on.
Yep.
It's on. You got to watch it. It's too funny you can't leave that movie. And then the new one that is I've just added into the must watch is Hidden Figures,
which I haven't seen yet.
Oh my God, dude. That movie is epic. Epic.
Yeah. I'm a bad person.
Yeah, you are. It's a great movie. Because if you're interested in the space program, you learn so much about the space program you didn't know. Yeah. And one, you learn all about the role that African-American women played in the space program. You learn all about how they were calculating all this stuff. And you're like, the stuff that you would do on your phone these days, they're calculating how they ever got astronauts back to Earth. I have no idea, but they did it. And it's all in the movie. And Kevin Costner is great in the movie. Jim Parsons of Big Bang Theory fame is great in the movie. And all the women in the movie, the leads, are just, they're brilliant. It is a movie you have got, if it's on, Crystal and I watch it. We both love that movie. The other one I have to add to this list here, under the must watch, is Seabiscuit.
Which another movie I haven't seen.
Oh,
so there's a couple of good ones here.
That is, Seabiscuit is a great movie, brilliantly shot with amazing actors. Tobey Maguire has never been better. Jeff Bridges, the lady from the girl from Hunger Games,
Jennifer Lawrence.
Not Jennifer Lawrence, the one who plays the over the top crazy one. Anyway, it's just a brilliant cast, top to bottom, and it is a beautifully shot movie, and it tells a great story about the Great Depression. It's Chris Cooper is in it, the amazing actor Chris Cooper. He's in it. So there you go. Oh, Last Starfighter, Ray Wood. Oh yeah. That's a great movie.
Yeah, it is. And it's they want to, every now and then somebody talks about remaking it, and the guy who owns the rights to it just not interested.
Oh really?
Yeah, he just basically says, I don't see any way. It is the movie that I wanted to make. Why would we remake it?
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, and I haven't seen it in a while, but it's really a pretty good movie.
Yeah, it's dated, but it's great. And Robert Preston is really wonderful in that role.
Yeah.
I think we listen. If you come to the studio and you go around and look at all the panels, when you get to the weapons station, there's a Death Blossom button.
That's good.
Yeah. Elizabeth Banks. Thank you. Right, Sublette. You nailed it. Elizabeth Banks. She is in Seabiscuit, and she is, and it's almost like you. It's like, where have I seen her before? Because she's always, doing something really different and outlandish, but she's really wonderful in this. And Jeff Bridges is he's just so good in everything he does, and he's great in this. So there you go.
So Jim Westbrook, who usually says really good things, says that to him another great must-see movie is Waterworld. I think we lost Alec again. He'll be back. Waterworld is not as bad as its reputation has it. And the thing about Waterworld is that a lot of the reputation of Waterworld was about how expensive it was. And it actually wasn't as expensive. Waterworld wasn't as expensive as it was commonly believed to be. There's some interesting stuff that took place with Sony buying one of the theaters, one of the major studios in Hollywood at the time. Do you remember this, Alec? So Sony bought studios, and the tradition in Hollywood has always been, if your studio gets bought, the executives, if they want to leave, you let them, right? It's one of those, okay, you got a contract, but you let them. And so these executives wanted out, and the Japanese said, no, you have a contract. You're going to continue working for us. And apparently, the billing system in Hollywood is largely the honor system, right? It's like, charge it to this movie, charge it to that movie, etc. Apparently Waterworld, which was a Sony movie, Waterworld subsidized every movie in Hollywood that year. Everybody was just saying, bill it to Waterworld. Bill it to Waterworld. So you had that as one problem. And then you also had the problem that they built all those sets at sea that were off the coast of Hawaii. And then a major storm came through and destroyed all the sets, and they had to build them a second time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, Waterworld is just not a good movie.
It's not a good movie, but it's not as bad as its reputation, because so much
That's
of the
probably true.
so much of the reputation was about it being this, this $100 million failure. Well, the reason why it was way over budget was bad weather, and everybody else was charging to it because to piss off the Japanese. So, but that having been said, I really like the nickname Fish Tar for it.
What's the nickname?
Fish Tar.
I've heard that. That's great. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, in fact, Delon said it before I did. Fish Tar.
Okay, that's great.
So
I'm just looking through my list to see if there's anything. That's.
Oh wow, this is a fun fact if true. I have no reason to think that it's not. I just can't independently confirm it. That Gul Dukat was the assassin in The Last Starfighter.
Really?
If only there was some sort of global information database that one could access from, say, a personal computer.
Or a phone.
Or a phone. Okay, so.
All right, let's check. Okay, here we are.
Mark Alamo as Hitchhiker.
Will
Wheaton's.
Okay. Mark Alamo was the. Yeah. Okay. He was the.
Yeah, and Will Wheaton was in it too.
No.
Will Wheaton as Lewis's friend.
Will Wheaton.
So let's see.
Mark Alamo, Hitchhiker.
This was 1984.
Will Wheaton.
Will Wheaton was born in 1972.
Lewis's friend.
When the movie came out, so he would have been younger when it was filmed.
Interesting. Okay. There you go. Well, good.
Yeah.
That was a. What? Mad Max on water. Yeah.
Yeah. And
and Greg was played by another legendary actor, Dan O'Hara.
And what I really think made Waterworld was what's his I'm drawing a blank. Easy Rider.
My God, I just saw his name too. I literally just saw his name.
Dennis Hopper.
Dennis Hopper.
Yeah, Dennis Hopper, I think, really made Waterworld.
Yeah, he was great. Dennis Hopper was great. Great.
I need to see more Dennis Hopper stuff. He may also be another one who fits in the category of surprisingly effective when used according to the directions.
Yeah,
Dennis
Hopper was brilliant in Hoosiers, which is
been
one of my top 20 movies, of course.
When I worked at the Postal Service, the assistant postmaster general for communications was really into that movie.
Oh, it's a brilliant movie,
and like really wanted all the rest of us to be into that movie. She thought,
that movie is so good, good. Yeah, could well be on the must-watch one because it is
So Jim says, but to be honest, that's why I don't usually mention my choices too. So
that's a good idea, Jim. Yeah.
No. Let's not pick on Jim anymore. But it is, the thing about guilty pleasures is as long as you don't think it's a good movie while doing it, the thing about a guilty pleasure is, that like one of my guilty pleasures, and it's not that it's bad by any stretch of the imagination, it's just sort of atypical. If I'm like sick and just sort of laying on my couch and just want to watch something because I've got the flu or something, you know what I put in?
What?
Pride and Prejudice.
Really?
Yeah, the BBC production of Pride and Prejudice.
Okay.
Because it runs forever. And it's interesting, and I'm not going to feel like, oh, I need to take notes on this, or oh, that's got a really great idea, I need to capture that, or something like that. I can just sort of just sit and veg. And I remember when the BBC miniseries first came out, that's the thing that put Colin Firth on the map, right?
Oh, really?
People knew who Colin Firth was, but he was very much he wasn't a B-list actor, but he wasn't a name. Right. And so he does the BBC production of Pride and Prejudice. He goes off and in the process hooks up with Jennifer Ely. And so I always find it interesting when the stars of a production hook up, and that when you're watching the production. And so Jennifer Ely or Colin Firth finishes Pride and Prejudice, goes to South America to film Nostromo. The BBC puts Pride and Prejudice together and shows it, and Darcy Mania hits the United Kingdom. And Colin Firth, all he's heard from his agent is, oh yeah, it did well. And so he shows up at Heathrow as just, any other time he shows up at Heathrow before this, he just comes through, and people like, is this guy a friend of my dad? He looks kind of vaguely familiar, right? He shows up at Heathrow, and there are 200 people waiting.
Oh, wow.
And he just like, what the hell? So Darcy Mania happens in the UK, and he doesn't see it. He's not there for it. He only experiences it when he comes back later.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Wow. Getting off the topic, and we're gonna have to wrap it up because it's
we're getting
I gotta walk the dogs. Have you been watching Andor?
I have not. I probably should be.
You should, because it is it's if you did you like Rogue One?
I loved Rogue One.
Then you'll like Andor, because Rogue One is like, is the grounded, even though it's Star Wars, it's like a much more grounded war pit. It's a war movie, right? It's a war movie. And it's not, you don't feel like Rogue One is space fantasy. Like,
no, you don't.
Star Wars movies, right?
You know what the thing I really love about Rogue One is? So they get at so first of all, it's sort of the insane clown posse, right? So they go off and they don't have a plan. They just sort of like, we're gonna go save the universe, but they don't have a plan, right? And so they get there, and it's like, oh yeah, we don't really have a plan. Oh shit, we need a plan. Does anybody have a plan? And somebody goes, well, we could do X, and it's like, that's great. You got a plan. We're gonna do X. And so, is it the best plan? No, it's not the best plan. But the time to do the best plan was before they left, right? So they're making it up on the fly. Somebody has an idea, and they go, all right, anybody else? Okay, that's it. We're doing that. And then they run into a problem, and they solve the problem. And then they run into another problem, and they solve the problem. And then they run into another problem. And as Matt Damon says at the end of The Martian, if you solve enough problems, you get to go home in the end.
Yeah.
And so it's entirely improvised. And that in my mind is a big charm of it. It was a shit show when they went in, but that's how the real world works, right? It's like, what are we going to do now? Does anybody have an idea? I don't have any ideas. Anson Mount does that in Strange New Worlds. I'm out of ideas. Anybody got an idea?
Yeah, right.
Okay, we're going to do that.
Yeah.
We're going to do that. Let's do that.
Yeah.
So that's just, I just love that.
Well, Andor is interesting for a few reasons, a few things that you don't associate with Star Wars. One is that it's kind of bleak. It's painting I mean, basically everyone's living. It's 10 years after Revenge of the Sith. Everyone's living in a dictatorship, whether they know it or not.
Yeah.
And the resistance isn't, is really in its infancy. And the thing you get the feel for is you get a feel this vast. And listen, I am not a fan of this way of shooting, movies these days, which is this kind of this neutral color palette, where everything looks kind of like a rival. If you saw a rival, everything's kind of, it's just muted color palette, not my thing, right? And certainly Star Wars was never about that. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that simply by the choice of locations and in Andor. But it's really the tale of the infancy of the rebellion in its infancy, and this vast, overreaching administratum that's been put in place to run the galaxy, and the imperial, it's the imperial administration of everything, and how they're trying to root out the resistance. And you get this real oppressive feeling for it. So one, it's a very different tone than anything else in Star Wars, which is great, because I think it's needed and it's important. And two, and the guy who plays Andor it's a fascinating character, and we're taking a long time for him to develop into the person he then is in Rogue One. But Stellan Skarsgård, who from the Thor movies, and he is unbelievably written character. The character is so well written, it's just an actor's dream. And he has this one monologue, which I posted on my Facebook page, where in the not this last new episode, but last week's episode, he has an informant in the Imperial Intelligence Bureau, and this informant's is sacrificing so much and wants out, and Stellan's like, no, you're not getting out. Our job's not done. And so the guy is like, well, what have you sacrificed? And Stellan Skarsgård has this epic Shakespearean epic monologue. It's about a paragraph long, and it is so brilliant and so moving and so well acted. So I can only imagine Stellan got this script and was like, oh, this is good shit, right? Yeah. And he's such a great actor. And so I love the series, and I love the series for it's different, we all like different. I mean, I like Star Trek Strange New Worlds for a totally different reason, or you might like whatever it is. But this is much darker in tone, but wow.
And I can actually see why in that environment the color palette makes sense to me.
Yeah, right.
It's a gray world, right? It's a gray universe. And so Stellan Skarsgård, incidentally, I first saw him in one of my all-time favorite movies, and that is Hunt for Red October.
Right. He is the Alpha.
Captain Tupolev.
Yeah, right. That's right. Yeah, very good.
A young Stellan Skarsgård.
Yeah, he was young in that movie. Yeah, very, very good. Yeah, which is another great movie.
Yeah,
they'd have to be on that must-watch list.
Yeah, it's on my must-watch list. It's really a fantastic movie.
Alec Baldwin is so good in it.
He is, and Sean Connery is good in it, and Scott Glenn's good in it.
They're all good in it.
Yeah,
everyone is good in that movie. Yeah,
I never got a chance to meet Clancy, and it's actually sort of surprising that I never got a chance to meet him.
Really.
And the reason why is because I know so many people who knew Tom Clancy. He famously gamed out the scenario for Hunt for Red October, or not for Hunt for Red October, for Red Storm Rising, right? They played the game Harpoon. I think that at some point I figured out I knew every player in that game. Chris Carlson was one of the naval commanders. Larry Bond was one in that game. Todd Cowderer, my buddy who passed away a few years ago now. Todd's made the argument to me. He said, "Look, I can't say that I'm the model for Jack Ryan, but I was part of Clancy's gaming group at the time. I've got Jack Ryan's academic background, and I work for the Submarine Analysis Group, which in the real world was at ONI, the Office of Naval Intelligence. It wasn't at CIA, but he worked for the Submarine Analysis Group. His father was an admiral, and if you read the movie or the book Blind Man's Bluff, his father, in that book, it is claimed that his father he and his submarine spent 3 days on the floor of Vladivostok Harbor. And at one point, his dad was ComSub Lant, Commander Submarines Atlantic.
Wow.
At the time when his son, the lieutenant, was at the Submarine Analysis Group at ONI. And so literally like twice a month, Todd would drive down to Norfolk to give a TS oh my God level brief to his dad. That stories like that don't happen in the real world. That's a Hollywood story.
Right. Wow. That's it. That's awesome. By the way, one last thing. Enemy Mine. Yeah, I loved Enemy Mine. That was a great movie.
I need to see it again.
Oh yeah, gosh, I love that movie. That was so good. Dennis Quaid was wonderful. So good pickup, Ray. Good pickup. All right, listen, we have got to sign off. We've been here for an hour and a half. Thank you all for sticking with us for this long. Thank you for having me tonight, Chris.
Thank you very much for joining me. It was a pleasure, as always.
As always, and the next time you need a guest host, I'm always here to help out.
So two things. First of all, Jens, you had a very interesting comment. We should discuss that at some other time there. I'm trying to figure out exactly what you mean there. I think I know. I think that's a room number. I suspect that's a room number. But the other thing is no show next week. Because I'm actually going to be in the same location as Pat and Andy Presby and his wife, Joelle. We're all going to be at a science fiction con together, but we're not going to try to do a show from the con because we never know whether we're going to have decent internet or not. And by the way, Joelle Presby, her book, The Dabari Space Launcher, came out from Baen at the beginning of the month. It is a fantastic book. I really, really, really enjoyed it. And it's about not building the orbital, the space elevator at Kilimanjaro, but building the launcher that's going to launch the supplies into orbit to let them build the carbon fiber that they're going to drop down to connect to Kilimanjaro. So it's the infrastructure phase before they build the space elevator. And Joelle lived in the Cameroon for 12 years. Her parents were missionaries. And so she lived there from like the age of like 3 months or 6 months or something like that to like 12 and a half. And so this is she spent a lot of time living in Africa, and sort of it feels very authentic, and it doesn't feel stereotypes. So
there you go.
Great book.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much. And stay tuned. Make sure, once again, I didn't do my comments, but if you need to stay up to date down there below, go to axanar.com and sign up for the newsletter. just click on the newsletter button and you can sign up for our newsletter. And please, if you're not already a member of our Patreon, patreon.com/Area Studios, please sign up, become a member, support the studio. Next 2 months from now, we have a 3-day film shoot for Axanar happening at the studio, and we'll tell you more about that next time.
And Alec is doing this show tonight on his new video editing computer.
That's right. This is the new computer we're going to be editing Axanar on. So not that I will be editing Mark Edward Lewis. The computer's eventually going to go to him. But there you go. So, all right, everyone. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time. And as always, live long and prosper, my friends.
See you later.